just got done making a complicated quilt, and I'm ready for something simple and relaxing. Well, if you're feeling the same way, then don't worry. I've got some great patterns in mind. Hi, it's Hannah with Fabric Café. I love quilts with intricate piecing and designs, but sometimes I need a break from that and just want something simple and soothing. I still want something interesting though. So I pulled together 6 patterns that I think are both interesting and relaxing. Let's check out the first one. A big thing that makes a quilt no stress to me is simple blocks that don't require a lot of thought to get it right. So Picture Perfect is a great pattern for that. You're only making 2 different blocks with this one, and one of them is just a rectangle right here. Now, this simple border around our number 2 block gives it a nice 3D effect. It looks almost like a picture wall with lots of different pictures and picture frames. This would be a great pattern for a memory quilt. Maybe if you printed fabric photos, it would be great to highlight those. And there's one more thing that really makes this perfect as a no stress quilt. So let's put it on the table and I'll show you what it is. Something I really love about this pattern is that you can use directional fabrics in your fabric number 1 and your fabric number 2 position. But what's even better than that, because of how the blocks are made, you don't have to think too hard to make sure they go the right direction. So the first block, our focus block with our fabric number 1, you can see it's a nice directional print, but it's a rectangle that you cut independently. So it can turn whatever way you need to when you're assembling your rows. Very easy, you don't have to worry about that while you're cutting. Our secondary block, I have another nice directional fabric in the middle of this, but when you make this block, it's a strip assembly. So we have long strips sewn on the top and bottom of this one, this nice long strip. Then you trim little units off of that and sew strips onto the side. It's gonna be the same no matter how you make it. So it can turn this way, it can turn this way. So while you're constructing your pieces, you don't have to worry about how that directional fabric is gonna go. It's gonna work out every time. You just have to pay attention when you're putting it into the quilt. Now, our beautiful kit that we have for Picture Perfect is very picturesque. So it's kind of like that picture frame I was talking about, like you're looking at all of this beautiful scenery. We have for our number 1 fabric, we have this beautiful watercolor forest with these different cabins scattered throughout. This is gonna go everywhere you see your nice big block here. And then our number 2, it's a very soft direction, but we have all of these animals on this creamy white. It picks up the aesthetic of this one, and it picks up some of those browns that are in the cabin. That's gonna go everywhere you see this nice white here. Then for our number 3, we went with a really different texture than our other 2 fabrics. These both were watercolor, but it's nice because it still has the nature theme and the colors of both of these, really complementary, and it really stands apart. So it's gonna show up really nicely in this green area right here. So you can see on the screen what I mean about having that different texture in our number 3 position, because it's got that nice dark rich green which flows with that focus fabric really nicely, but having that different texture and size print really lets the focus show up nicely. And that number 2, and that number 2 square right there highlights it, and it lets it be a double focus, and it lets every fabric have its own place to shine. So this kit information is Cabin Retreat, using the Picture Perfect pattern from our book, Quick and Easy. This is our Carousel pattern, and another great no stress quilt is a 1 block quilt because you only have to learn 1 type of block, which Carousel is. This quilt is a 1 block made in 2 different color ways. So you'll use the same technique for both blocks, but you'll get nice color alteration and bring a lot of interest across the front of the quilt. Now we're rotating and moving these blocks on the quilt, which creates a lot of movement as well. And we're gonna crop this out on the table and show you just how easy it is to make this quilt. First off, our block A, we have a nice strip assembly unit right in the center here with our fabric 1 and fabric 2. We're just gonna sew a strip of our fabric 2 onto the side, and we're gonna keep on building. We're gonna put a strip of our fabric 3 on top of that, then onto the side, onto the top with our fabric 2, and onto our side with our fabric 2. So it's very simple. You just keep building and putting on strips. And this is a great place to chain piece if you like doing chain piecing. Our secondary block is made exactly the same way. The fabric is just moved around a little bit. So first off, we have that unit here in the center. Only this time it's using our focus and our fabric number 3. And also you can see there's a nice size square right here, so you're able to use a nice print too. We will sew a strip onto the side with our fabric number 3, and we're just gonna keep on building just like we did the last one, alternating our fabric number 2, strips onto the top and the side, ending with strips onto the top of that, whoop, there you go, onto the top of that, and then the sides. And then these blocks just turn and twist all across the quilt so that you get this nice movement. All right, so let's look at the fabric we have picked out. So we do have a nice size print for our number 1 fabric, and it's actually the lightest fabric in our kit, which is okay. All you have to do is remember that after you pick your focus fabric, you're gonna take that out of the equation, and then you pick your lightest and your darkest from the 2 colors remaining. So our fabric number 1, we have these gold peacock feathers. It's very, very radiant, very glamorous. And this is gonna go in the center of all of our blocks and on our border. Then our number 2, we went with the gold metallic. Now, this one I really like in this quilt because it's a very bold color, and this quilt nicely disperses those fabrics across the surface of the quilt. So if you are working with a more bold print and you wanna make sure it's nice and spread out and not too concentrated in one area, this is a good pattern for that. And this is gonna go everywhere you see that white. And then our number 3, we picked up a blue with some gold metallic speckles, and it almost looks like marble. This is gonna go everywhere you see our dark fabric here. And you can see how that gold really is scattered across the quilt. Because if you had too much of it in one area, it might become a little bit overwhelming. But because it's scattered throughout very nicely in these smaller strips, it doesn't make it too overpowering. And that blue really complements our focus and the gold, since it has those little touches of gold in it and picks up the eye of our peacock feather. It adds a really nice contrast to make sure that your focus fabric is highlighted. Now this kit is called Flutter and Flourish, and it's using the Carousel pattern. This is our lightning pattern from the Easy Does It 3-Yard Quilts book, and I love the movement this quilt has. It has a nice, strong, geometric design. So if you're making this quilt for someone who has a more modern style, this would be a really good one. And this pattern works really well with smaller prints or textural prints. And batiks are really nice in it too. I love the borders on this quilt. I love having the darkest fabric as your first border because it really frames in the piecing and the design. And then it gives an opportunity for your focus to shine in your second, larger border. Fun fact about lightning, this quilt is another 1 block made in 2 different colorways. And this block is so easy. So first off is you make a strip assembly where we sew nice long strips on the long edges. Now I've already cut a couple units off of this so it's not as long as normal, but what you do is you sew those together, those 2 long strips, and then you cut your unit off of that, and that becomes your block. So that's 1 block done, easy peasy. Now your secondary block, your block B, is made exactly the same way. Only this time we're using our fabric number 2 and our fabric number 3. So we have our nice long strips that we just cut our units, our blocks off the side of. I'm so used to saying units when you cut something off, but this is even better because you're cutting your whole block off of this. So here we have that. And then when you're sewing them together for your quilt, you're just alternating and turning your blocks. So make sure to keep an eye on that. Put a sticky note underneath the row that you're working on. I find that very helpful. And here we have one, just for an example of kind of how it goes together. Then we would sew one right here. So they're just kind of twisting and turning. Up here, we have one right here, and you'll sew them in nice long rows, but I just kind of want to give you a taste of how it will look and be. And then on here, next to that one, you have this. So you're just twisting and turning so that you can create, as you see, this nice zigzag across the surface of your quilt. It's really easy to put together, and I think it turns out into be such a dynamic quilt. Another fun fact about this quilt, you can use a two-way directional print in this pattern, like a stripe. So for our number 1 fabric, we actually do have one, but it's very soft. And we have all of these clouds and all of the colors of the rainbow. So to me, it looks kind of like you just saw a rainbow after a nice storm. And this is gonna go everywhere you see this green. And because of the way those blocks twist and turn, like we showed you earlier, that's why you can use a two-way directional like a stripe, because you never have to worry about meeting them up. This fabric has so many different colors that you could pull from for your number 2 and 3. So when you have something this bold like this, just pick your favorites. So what we did is we pulled this nice bright pink, which actually has a little bit of shimmer to it. And that's gonna go everywhere you see this light green right here. So it'll fall to the back. Then our number 3, we decided to pull out the blue that you see here. And it's just a nice soft mottled texture, very simple, so that our focus can really be the focus. And this is gonna go everywhere you see this black. This turned out so very cute, and I love how that bright color is just dancing across the quilt. It's very different from the one we've been looking at on the table, and I love how different you can make it. You can make it strong and geometric, or you can make it soft and sweet like this one. And I think having that really strong difference between our number 1 and our number 3 is very helpful with seeing that zigzag pattern. You want to make sure that there's enough difference between all 3 of your prints so that each one gets to show up and that the pattern of the quilt is very prominent. Now this one is called Painted Sky, and it's using our lightning pattern from the book Easy Does It. This is our Pretty Please quilt, and this is another great no stress because you only have 2 different blocks to make. First, we have a square, which is super easy, and you can use directional fabric with it because it's cut independently. Then we just have a nice sashed block here that has a strip assembly unit in the center with 2 strips sewn on either side. Now, something I really love about this pattern is that the only place you have to match up seams is when you're putting your rows together. Because right here you see we have a long edge that you sew and here. So the only place you have to worry about is right here. And that makes sewing your blocks into your rows very simple. So something I really like about our Pretty Please pattern is that it's a great one if you need to separate your fabrics 1 and 3. Maybe they're too alike in print size or color. Because here we have our nice block of our focus, and then our fabric number 2 is what's next to it, so it separates them. And it's kind of like a double focus if you want it to be, using more prints. So what we have today, we have this beautiful floral, and it's kind of like deserty florals, which I really like, but it's very kind of regal in its style. This is gonna go everywhere. You see our butterflies here. Then for our fabric number 2, we're using that to separate our fabric 1 and 3, and we used a nice mottled cream. And this is gonna go everywhere you see this white right here. So it'll really set these fabrics apart. Now, part of the reason I thought this fabric would look best in this pattern is because you can see we have 2 bold prints. And I thought each one needed their own moment. So having this nice little geometric on our border and in the center of these blocks is gonna give it the time to shine away from our focus fabric. I think that having that separation between your focus and that fabric number 3 keeps everything from getting jumbled together. You can really see that number 1 and number 3 fabric. And I love having the number 3 on the border. I think it works out so nicely. You kind of have this optical illusion almost with this quilt, which I think is really nice. This one is called Desert Deco, and it's using our Pretty Please pattern. Here we have a really great double focus quilt, which can use directional fabrics in both of our number 1 and our number 3 position. This is our Faceted pattern. It's a really nice big block too, so you can use a nice large size print in it. We have 3 borders, one with each of the fabric positions, which I think is such a nice way to bring all of the fabrics together. These blocks are made very simply and in a really fun technique. We use some stitch and flip, but instead of just talking about it, let's go show you. To make our faceted quilt, we make 2 different blocks, one with our focus fabric in a nice big square with a stitch and flip done on just one corner. Now, this can use directional fabric, which is great, just like our fabric number 3, and it's just made on the opposite corner. And whenever you put these together, you can see on the quilt, we've got this nice diagonal movement going on the quilt. My favorite thing about this quilt is that when you're building your rows, you have all your blocks done. We're gonna take little strips and sew it between the rows. Because these are just straight seams, that means no pinning, nothing to join, which is great. And you just keep alternating like that, alternating one block with a strip, another block with a strip, another block, and so forth, making all your rows. When you put your rows together, you take long strips of fabric and you sash between the rows. So again, this is just a straight seam. There's nothing to match, which means that there is no seam matching in this entire quilt. And that's a big deal for me. I don't mind pinning, but it definitely makes it a lot easier and faster when you don't have to worry about it or think about it. So if you're wanting something really fast, this is a good one. So for our fabric number 1 for this kit, we went very bold, very geometric, which I'm a big fan of. It's kind of like a mosaic tile almost. This one is gonna go everywhere you see this large floral, as well as on one of our borders. And then our number 2 fabric, we needed to keep it very soft and neutral because our fabric number 1 and what you'll see in a minute, that fabric number 3, are very bold geometric prints. And we needed to make sure that they didn't get lost in one another. So we kept our number 2 very neutral, and that's gonna go everywhere you see this right here. It's a more gray tone. And then for our fabric number 3, we have another kind of mosaic geometric shape and all of these nice teals on a dark navy blue background. This is gonna be our other focus fabric, our secondary focus, and that will be here in this peachy block as well as on one of our borders. And you can see just how nice it looks picking up all the teals on this one. And I like, this one has some more warm tones in it, and this one's kind of pulling in the teals a little bit stronger. So when you put them all together, they look stunning. I think we really needed that big block to showcase those fabrics because our number 1, while being geometric, is a fairly large print. So having a block that size really works well for it. And we needed that number 2 to be very simple, as you see, to really highlight both of those fabrics. Because if they were right on top of each other, it'd be a little hard to see that diagonal movement. But with that soft gray for our number 2, both of them get to shine. All right, this kit is called Serene Mosaic, and it's using the faceted pattern from our double focus 3-yard quilts book. Now this is the Allure pattern, which is from our Magic of 3-Yard Quilts book. And this one is made with 2 very simple blocks that are made using the same technique. We're gonna crop this out on the table so I can show you what I mean. But first, let's talk about some fun features of this quilt. We have a really nice large block to show off your focus fabric. And then I love how this block is bordered by your fabric number 3. It's a great way to highlight that focus fabric even more. It's like giving it a little picture frame. I think this would be a great pattern to use scraps or even to cut down some layer cakes. You could put different prints in all of these squares and they wouldn't clash since our fabric number 3 creates this nice separation. Now, let's take a closer look at how this quilt is made. So let's step out how to make the blocks in this quilt. For our number 1 block, we have a strip assembly in our center, like this. And this one has a strip on the top, a strip on the bottom, and then our focus in the middle. So it'll be nice long strips like we saw with our lightning. And then we just add strips onto the side of this. Now, I mentioned you could use layer cakes or scraps in this. If you do a layer cake, you won't be able to sew, a strip assembly like this. However, very easy to change. All you need to do is sew strips onto the top and bottom, and then sew your strips onto the side after you've trimmed it even. So still really easy and a great way to use some of those pre-cut packages you might have. Now our secondary block is made the same way, it's just in different sizes. So it gives this really nice dimension to the quilt. So the center of our block is another strip assembly unit, but it's a smaller square here in the center with our fabric number 3 and slightly thicker ones of our fabric number 2 on both sides. Then we add a strip of our fabric number 2 on both sides of that. So this goes together very easy, very quick, and it's a great way to show off some nice fabrics. So what we have for you are these beautiful roses. Now I love the yellow on the roses. I think if I had to pick a favorite rose color, it would be yellow. It's just so bright and cheerful and fun. And these are watercolor ones too, so we have this nice watercolor effect on the fabric. So this fabric is gonna go in our number 1 position in the center of this square and on one of our borders, so it'll be really beautiful out there. So for our fabric number 2, we picked a really nice soft blue watercolor texture. Our number 1 fabric is the lightest fabric in our kit. So we went with a slightly darker color for our number 2, but it's still a lot lighter than our fabric number 3. This is gonna go everywhere you see the cream in this quilt. Then our fabric number 3, we picked this really rich kind of royal blue. And this is going to be where our pink is. So it's going to be surrounding our fabric number 1. And you can see all these little blue flowers. And I think blue and yellow look very soothing together as well. They're very complementary. So this will go, like I said, everywhere you see the pink, which means it'll also be on the binding, which I love. And you can see how nice that looks with that blue, that dark blue framing our focus fabric. It really makes it set apart. And then having that little touch of our fabric number 2, it really highlights that optical illusion you can get with this pattern. I think it turned out so nice. I love the blue and the yellow together. It's a very comforting quilt, and it really can brighten your day just by looking at it. Now this kit is called Sunshine and Blue Skies, and it's using the Allure pattern from our Magic of 3-Yard Quilts. So if you're feeling like you're in need of a break, I hope you give one of these patterns a try. You'll be able to get these projects done really quickly, and they'll help you get inspired for your next big project. If you are looking for more inspiration, then be sure to check out the video that pops up next and see some amazing quilts from our quilt family. Happy quilting!